Wow, the AI video generation space is crazy right now, and it seems like we get big news every freaking day. And over the past 2 days, two big advancements in the area of image to video have been released. The first one, of course, the Hunyuan model. We've done several videos on the Hunyuan model, doing comparisons with other models and creating lores for them. And it is an amazing model with lots of potential, but it was always text or some sort of hacked version of an image to video solution. But now we have the official image to video solution, and the other one is the LTXV model, which we've also done videos on, but it's been a while. But as you might infer from looking at the screen, they've added start and end frames to their model and given the whole model an update and a boost as well. So let's just go over the highlights of each of these just real quick, and then we're going to get into how to run these, which is actually part of these highlights. I've provided links to both these pages here on the Comfy blog, one for the Hunyuan model and one for the LTX model. And if you just go through these instructions, it will of course tell you what's so great about these models and give you sample workflows to download, as well as all the instructions you need to get started with using this model in Comfy UI. You will of course need to update your Comfy UI, and some basic knowledge of Comfy UI is necessary because I'm not going to get into that level of stuff, nor am I going to get into the installation, because the installation for both of these models is covered on these blog pages. And today we're going to be looking at them both on Mimic PC because they both run much faster than I can run them here on my local computer, and it eliminates the need for downloading anything or configuring anything or going through any of these instructions. You can just log in and start. So as mentioned, the Hunyuan model was always great, but now we're getting videos like this that start from still images, and this is something we've all been waiting for because the model is so good. We couldn't wait to see what it was going to do with our images, and we get a peek at that today. And as I alluded to before, the big news in the LTX model is not only improvements all around, but this start and end frame, and actually you have the ability to add multiple keyframes into these animations, higher resolution videos, longer sequences, less artifacting, and a better understanding of the prompt. And once again on this page, you've got the step-by-step instructions, all the files you need to download, and where to put them on your drive. You also have sample workflows for text to video workflow, and then the simple image to video workflow, meaning just one image, and then the multi-frame control workflow where you can have start and stop images. Now, before we get too deep in this, these are brand new to me. I am not an expert in any of these. I want to show you the basic functionality of them. Normally when these things come out, a few days go by, things get easier to implement, the files get smaller and faster, and so I don't want to spend too much time on the technical configuration of things. Let's just get started and have some fun with it. For those who don't know, Mimic PC is a remote computing service which allows you to run all of these AI applications remotely, so you don't have to use your GPU that either you don't have or you'd rather use for something else. And they have tons of pre-made workflows. If you click the workflows link up here and just do a search for what you might be looking for, or just browse, you're going to find out that you are one click away from running workflows that feature a lot of this technology that you're probably hearing about, and no configuration nightmares, and it can literally be pennies an hour to run these things. So depending on when you see this video, you might come to Mimic and do a search for example, LTX, just to make sure that you're getting the latest workflows available. Same thing with the Hunyuan video. New workflows are constantly being added to make these technologies so much easier to get started with, because it can be a little overwhelming and you can run into configuration nightmares which can trash your whole system. So I always say to test this type of thing remotely if you can at first, to see if it's even worth installing on your system for you. Both these workflows are slightly modified versions of those basic workflows that I pointed you to before. The only thing I really changed here is added this video combine mode so that it would save as an actual video file rather than an animated GIF. We're looking right now at the Hunyuan workflow in its simplest form. You're just dropping an image here, giving it a prompt, and waiting for it to spit out on the other side. I have a 3090 at home. I run this workflow at home. It is painfully slow, unbearably slow, like an hour for a few seconds of a video about this resolution. There may be some other configuration issue on my end, but over here it's a much more reasonable amount of time. For example, if I drag this picture of a cat in here and I say a cat is singing on stage and click Q, of course we're going to be waiting for the models to load. One thing I forgot to mention and did not do is to change the aspect ratio over here appropriately for the starting image, because what we've got here is 768 by 352, and I think for this demonstration it's probably more appropriate that I do something like a 512 by 512, a reasonable amount of time and a reasonable resolution for the demonstration. So I'm just going to stop this. if you don't know how to do this, you can pop this window open here, right mouse click, and just say delete, and that will abort this process as soon as it can, and then just queue up the next one. These are large models, and they will take a minute to load for the first time, but that is a one-time load. Okay, we've loaded the model now, and we are on to the sampler, and this is where the magic happens. So we can watch the pace of the bar going across, and you can see that it's going at a reasonable rate. We're doing 20 steps in this generation, and it looks like this will take about a minute or maybe even a little less to do in its entirety. And as I say, something like this on my system would have taken way longer. I didn't properly mention it before, but I am running their Ultra Pro GPU. It's one of their most expensive ones, but you can use their bargain option to get it at half price, and it is so much faster that it is worth doing, rather than trying to save money by using a cheaper GPU. You'll actually come out ahead if you go with the Ultra Pro here. We're just about done here, but we can open this one here and see the quality of it. Very smooth, very coherent. Just what we'd expect of the Hunyuan model. There we go. And there she is singing. Okay, she's got kind of a la 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 thing going on. I probably, maybe if I had made the animation a little bit longer, we get a little bit more variety there. Now that we've got all the models loaded, let's run it again because it'll go a lot faster. And let's add a little bit more action here, is dancing and singing on stage. And cue that, and let's see if we get anything better. Also, just in case you're new to this and you've never used this video combine mode, a best practice also is to change this file name prefix that means something to you so I can identify it in a list, because it defaults to saying animate diff, which is not the technology that we're using. But you can see that by adding the instruction to dance, we did get a little bit more interesting movement there. Now, rather than spend a ton of time trying to get this one better, let me show you some examples of other ones that I did using this very workflow. So of course, the first frame of all of these animations is the frame that it was based on. So this was a clown eating a spider from a jar. And also, let's keep in mind that we're not really giving the model a ton of time to do anything, because we're trying to get this done in a reasonable amount of time, and I really haven't pushed it to its limits in terms of length. But there are lots of examples that you can see other places to show that, of course, you can do longer videos with Hunyuan model. We've done it on the channel many times other places. This is some old AI image I generated because I always thought this kind of thing was funny, and I guess I still do, but it's a baby eating a live squid while a group of people laugh and point, and so we get this. Again, we're just dealing with 3 seconds here to make all this happen, but it looks pretty good. I mean, a little wiggly and a strange thing with the finger, but that was probably because the first frame of the video was a little bit weird. Now, this one was actually part of an experiment, because I've heard with some of these Chinese models that if you prompt in Chinese, you might get better results. So this first one was a lizard selling hot dogs on a street corner, but in English, but he's really just kind of dancing with it. We can notice that the guy in the background is kind of frozen. There's not much activity going on there. We got a little bit of a fire here. But then I ran that prompt through Google Translate, got it into simplified Chinese, pasted that in there, and now look, we've got the walking back here, we've got smoke happening, the fire's a little bit more. It doesn't seem to be selling this any more than that. There's not much change with him, but the rest of the image is way more dynamic. So play with using the Chinese translation if you're not getting the results you want. Here I was trying to duplicate this trendy little social media thing with these models that have 2 people in a picture hug each other. It didn't exactly work. Interestingly, it did keep the 2 halves of the image completely separated. There's no blending, but of course we didn't get the hug we wanted either. Okay, we just started with an image of a bottle floating in the water, and the prompt was bottle floating in the sea. And that seems to be what we've got there. We got nice ripples coming off the edge. Okay, here was the starting image, and this rendered at 512 by 512, I think, or maybe even 384 by 384, but just a sea creature wildly flailing his tentacles under the sea. But then I just wanted to see what the difference would be if I took the time to render it at 720 by 720, and it looks much better, obviously, more detail, and I also think the animation in general is better. We've got the detail of the water up here as the sun's coming through it. Just looks really nice. Again, I'll leave the link to the workflow to find this over at Mimic PC if you'd like to try it out there, or you can follow the instructions on those other pages and get it running locally if you have the machine to do that. Let's look at LTX. Now, the workflow I'm going to point you to with the LTX model has several little hidden gems in it. Right here is the LTX simple image to video workflow, where it's just one image, one prompt. Bigfoot is writing on a chalkboard in a room full of restless kids, and we get this. And if you open up this little workflows folder, you'll find that we also have the multi-frame version as well, plus the simple text to video workflow, and it's all there by just opening this up, and you don't have to load them all separately. So just real quick, let's use the simple one just like I did. We'll drag this in here, and we will change this prompt to say Santa is beginning to cry. And we'll cue that up. Of course, the first time when we load the checkpoints, it takes some hot minute. So we'll do another one so you can see how fast it actually happens in real time. Okay, the model's loaded and we've just started sampling, and you can see it darting across there so much faster than any other video model out there. And let's check out the results. Now you'll notice this workflow still has the one that basically has the animated GIF or GIF in it. So I would replace this by double clicking here, doing a search for VHS. That's the video combine node, and just plug this in over here instead of there. Change the frame rate to 24 to match the rest of it. Also change this to LTX and change the format to MP4. I'll leave this there for now so we can see the result. It just takes a longer time for this to generate, and who needs a GIF? But there we go. Santa with crazy fingers starting to cry. Let's drag a new image in here of this dog-faced dude. We'll say dog face man is looking around as if waiting for someone. And click Q. The model's already loaded. Look how fast that is happening. Dun, 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 dun. We're just going to stay with it. That's what we're going to do. I'm not going to go anywhere. We're going to watch that green line go across together to see how fast it is. And boom, the decode has begun. And ta-da, there it is. Look at that. All right, so he quickly looks to the left, and out the window it goes. But that's still pretty cool. And one thing we might play with to modify that kind of outcome is the number of steps. 30 is right here, sort of in the middle, and I generally get good results with that. What if we popped it up to like 42? And ran it again? It's not going to take that much longer. Let's get this out of here because we no longer need that, and it's still taking up space. Zipping across there, and the difference between 30 and 42 steps is negligible. As you can see, time-wise, it's still pretty fast. But let's see what it does to the quality of the video. Okay, well, he's not turning his head anymore. We've just sort of got the handheld camera movement. I mean, it looks natural. It does look like he's alive, but why don't we just run it one more time? We'll just pop it up to 43 and see if that does anything. Click on Q, and that is not good. So let's try 25 steps. And again, that still seems a little not right either. So I generally like 30. I am noticing that I didn't change the aspect ratio, and that absolutely can help with the results. So I'm going to change it back to a square like it should have been in the first place. And actually, instead of 512 by 512, let's pop it up to 768 by 768 because it certainly will do that. And it's on a machine that'll handle it. It's not like it's going to take all day. And let's see the quality difference there. So let's cue that up. You can see it's still moving across at a pretty fast clip, even at that higher resolution. Oh, okay. It's still a little jerky and unnatural at times, but that's getting closer, and I think it's definitely worth the bump up in resolution. Now, there's also this base shift parameter, and I just got to be honest, I don't know enough about it to tell you what it might change, but I do know that it is something that people do change. Should we change it just to see what will happen? Let's move it up to like 1.22. The magic number. Then we'll take a quick peek at the text to video, and then we'll look at the start and stop frames. Okay, so we're still getting that kind of weird, unnatural movement when the head turns. Not sure why that is. Perhaps I lower the max shift because maybe that has something to do with how much it moves, so I'll take that down. I'm just experimenting here. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's the fun of this stuff. I'm not going to break anything. Well, I could, I guess. Well, that definitely did not help. Here's another example I did with just one image. A blue creature is eating a snack, and I kind of got the same sort of tearing that I am getting here. So I am sure that there are some parameters that could be changed to make this a little bit better. Of course, we saw this result already, and it was actually pretty good. It followed the prompt, which was Bigfoot is pointing at the blackboard, room full of kids, that whole thing that went along with the image, and it's pretty close. A little janky here and there, but it did a better job than some of the other ones we've been looking at. Let's just run their default text-to-video prompt and see what kind of quality we get right out of the box. They've got 50 steps going here, which is way more than what we were doing on our other examples in the image-to-video, but text-to-video definitely does like higher steps. Our resolution here is 768 by 512, rather healthy. And again, it's saving an animated GIF. And I guess we should really take a look at the prompt to see how it did. It's a majestic aerial shot, opens on a lone owl, its feathers glinting in the warm golden sunlight, clutching a parchment envelope in its beak, sprawling emerald fields, blades of grass rippling in the wind. So I'm seeing if I can see any parchment in its beak, and I'm having a hard time finding a beak. Before we move on, let's try that good old woolly mammoth prompt from the Sora days. Going very quickly. And look at that. That's not too terribly bad. It just makes me curious. Can I up these steps even more and get more detail? Let's pop this up to like 78. 80. That could be just way overkill, but let's just see what happens. Okay, I can't say that that made any real difference. I think they look less like mammoths now than they did before. We'll put it back down to 50 for future generations. For now though, let's look at the start and end frames. If we look back over the page, this is the kind of effect we can do, among others. I think it actually does, in my experimentation, much better with things like this than it does bringing motion to a character, having them go from this part of the room to the other part of the room, for example. We start with a picture of an empty vase, and we then end with a picture of a vase with flowers in it, and then we say a time lapse of flowers sprouting up from inside the vase. Let's check our aspect ratio, which is not actually very good. Let's change this up to 768. So we've got a nice big square, and hit Q. Model's already loaded from before, so it started right up. All right, in this case, it went way too fast. So let's say flowers slowly sprout from vase, and cue that up. Well, it's interesting, but it's not exactly what we asked for. We wanted them to sprout out from inside the vase, and instead they're falling out of the sky. It's still kind of a cool effect. It gives you an idea of what is possible here. Why don't we just play with the steps here one more time? We got 32 steps here. Why don't we crank it up to 40, and then we'll take it down a little bit and see what happens. Same exact prompt, same exact images. Well, it's a little bit different. We start there, a few of them bloom, and then some others fall from the sky. So it's pretty sporadic movement. Let's take down the steps to, let's say, 25. Well, this version also wants them to drop down from the ceiling and sort of work their way in there. I am fascinated with the animation. The quality itself is very good and fun, but it's just not sprouting from the vase. Now, the LTX model does like a more highly detailed prompt, so it's possible that if I said something like, flowers slowly sprout from the vase. First, we see a pink bud appear above the brim of the vase, followed by another and another, folding gently, creating a peaceful, easy feeling. Let's see if that changes anything. Okay. I'm going to have to say that definitely is getting there, right? We got this little strange piece at the beginning, because there's an odd shape in the background anyway. But we do get the buds coming up slowly out of the brim, and that is pretty freaking sweet if you ask me. So don't neglect the prompt. I want to show you a fun little trick for creating some of these before and after pictures to play with this technique, like with a vase that's empty and then a vase with flowers, and it's just simply using inpainting. You can use any tool. I like OpenArt because it's very super fast. I'm just going to go over here to create image. I'm going to switch to the Flux Dev model here, and I'm going to have a prompt like a close-up of a pitcher of milk tilted over an empty glass as the milk begin to pour out. I'll keep it square for now. I'll give myself 4 images to choose from here. All right, we didn't get an empty glass, and I definitely want the glass to be empty. Although I could try the technique I was going to in reverse. Why don't we do that? I'm going to choose this image here, and I'm going to choose inpaint. This will bring it into an editing canvas where I can change the size here. And I'm just going to maybe start here because ideally I want some of the milk to be pouring, and I'm just going to say an empty glass. I'm going to keep it on the Flux model for the inpainting. I find it helpful to pop up the number of steps when I'm doing inpainting, and I'm going to click create. All right, it did not empty the glass there. What was my prompt? An empty glass. All right, it just plain didn't do it. Let's do the whole thing, and I'm going to crank these steps up to 50 all the way. Got another idea not to be defeated. This one actually has less milk in it than the original, so I'm going to download this one and then go back to my original and download this one. So now I have a start and stop frame. I know it's not extreme, but it should be a really good demo because we're not asking it to do too much. So here it is with a little bit of milk in it, and here it is with more milk in it, and we'll just say milk is being poured into a glass. And we'll hit Q. Okay, there we go. So that's pretty much what we wanted, except that the glass changed size because I had the inpaint replace the entire thing. But it starts low and it goes high exactly as it should. Maybe a little bit more movement up here might be nice. Let's see if we can make this look even a little bit more natural by changing the prompt a little bit. Let's do, first of all, handheld camera is slightly shaky. Milk is being poured into a glass from a wobbly pitcher. That's pretty vague, but let's just see what happens. Cue that up. And I just love how fast it is. All right, I wouldn't say it's wobbly, but there is a little motion here. So it adds a little hint of realism to it. Let's go do another before and after. Let's do the classic. Close-up of an old woman's hands cupped together, holding black dirt. You know where I'm going with this, right? All right. We're going to create that. We'll choose this one here, and I'll go ahead and download that because we know that will be our before. And then I'm going to go back over here to inpaint, draw myself a little section here. A tiny blue and purple tulip is growing from the dirt. Again, I'm going to pop up the steps and give this a whirl. All right, and we got several results here. How about this one? This is good. So I will save this one, and we'll go back over to our workflow. Before, after. A blue and purple tulip grows from the dirt. How about if I enhance the prompt a little bit? Starting slowly with a green bud peeking out, then blooming into the full flower. Cute. It keeps wanting to drop the plants from the outside, even though I gave it that prompt. How about if I put the steps back up to 30 and just try again? And maybe I should say dirt being held in the shaky hands of an elderly woman. Cute. We'll have that going. Here's our first revision. It does better. It seems to be growing out now from the dirt. We still have that little weird compression at the beginning because when I did the inpaint, I selected this whole image and it redrew this background just a little bit. So it's morphing to reflect that change, and that's why we're getting that extra movement. All right, we got somebody else's extra hand in there. So what was this? This was the 30-step version. So we get an extra hand in there. Not exactly what we prompted either. So what if we take it back down to 28, between 25 and 30? I know I'm doing a ton of experiments, but sometimes it's these fine-tuned details that make the difference. Now, I don't hate this at all. I think it's really cool that we can do this on our computers now is great, and it's only going to get better. But just do one more, and then I'll show you a couple more examples of this, and then we're out of here. All right, here's the new version. Again, it fell from the sky. I'm just not clear on why that's happening. Plants grow from the dirt, right? I mean, I'm almost positive that's what we learned. You can see here that I did a lot of sort of before and afters with Tracy and her hair, with flowers and without flowers. So we get things like this. Or this one here. So we got that little flow in her hair. And then in this case, the roses slowly sprout out. Another example. So now let's try to create a before and after where one thing moves to another. First, let's create the scene where this is going to take place. An empty countertop in an old country kitchen. Let's just see what we get here. No, I want a close-up of a countertop. Close-up of an empty countertop. Okay, cool. This will do. So let's save that. And now let's do some inpainting. And I'm going to use an orange tabby cat because they look the same no matter what. I don't have to use a special model. So let's just put an orange tabby cat wearing a pink collar. Probably should have moved up the steps, but let's see what we get. Yeah, these are Hellcats, so let's do it with the steps raised. Okay, so we've got a cat now on the left side of the table. So I'll save that one. Then let's get rid of this mask and put another one over here. We'll just do the same prompt, same strength. So, okay, we'll use this one. We'll download that and go back to our workflow. We've got the cat on the left. We've got the cat on the right. So let's see if we can prompt this cat to move. Orange tabby cat walks the left side of the counter to the right and sits down. Let's cue this and see what happens. Well, we've got something. I mean, it definitely is on the right path here. It gets up, walks, its head changes sides, just like a real cat. I will go ahead and pop the steps up to 31 just to see if it makes any difference whatsoever. But honestly, that's better than I expected I would get. Okay, well, that's different. We got an extra cat in there for some reason. Maybe the extra steps made it a little too strong. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's better, but it is different. We've got some weird moving with the faucet back here too, because when the cat moves away, I didn't know what was behind it necessarily. But overall, I think you can see that we are headed in some very interesting directions with these open source models as their functionality begins to mirror more and more those of the high-end and commercial models. Add to that your ability to create LoRa's for these open source models so that you can customize them even more than you can the commercial models. If these are the types of things you like to learn about, well, why not subscribe to the channel? Because this kind of stuff we talk about all the time.
If you subscribe now, I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you do not, I will look for you. I will find you, and I